And we're back. Uh, uh. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the Fordcast. Welcome back. Welcome back. I am your host, JG Lockhart, and I am glad to be here. I'm so thankful to be here. I'm thankful for you being here. I'm thankful for the higher power, creator, whoever you reference your inner strength to. I'm glad that they allowed you to be here. So anyway, welcome to the show. Of course, let me get it out the way. I do not own the rights to the music that you hear. So that said, we're going to jump right on in it. So again, welcome to today's show. Coming up on today's show, we're going to recap some of the events over the weekend. Let me go ahead and pull this out. We're going to recap some of the events over the weekend. We're going to recap last weekend's show. We're going to talk a little bit about this whole Antifa, fascist King's protest. Also, we'll talk a little bit about the Panthers winning streak going on and relationships. Had a request that, we're not talking about relationships enough, so we're going to dive into that a little bit. And basically, when you and your someone aren't on the same page, what does that look like? And of course, we're going to finish up with our 10-minute transit talk. So let's just start right there. I know in the last episode, we talked about doing a show every day and until the election came up and giving you guys 10 minutes of transit information in order for you to make the best informed decision when you go to the polls. But here's the deal. It is hard putting this together. Okay. It is hard trying to come up with something that is relevant, that I think that you want to hear, and especially something that you need. And when I created this show, I wanted to create it to allow you a vehicle to hear something that you don't hear every day and to hear it from a different perspective. So let me just go ahead and say we were unable to uphold that commitment to every day. Okay. So we're going to try to put them out as often as we can and give you the information that you need and the information that you don't even know that you want, but you do need. So that's why if you were looking for a show every day, that's why we did not have it. So just a quick recap from our last show. We were talking a lot about fear and we were talking about stress. And one of the things that I was not able to get to before we ran out of time was talking about fear was, how do we get around fear? It's something that a lot of us don't want to admit that we're afraid of something or that something scares us, but, it's the truth. We're afraid to admit we're afraid, and that's kind of crazy because when you accept something, then you're able to face it, when you have the courage, and there it is right there. Courage. That's what it's about. The anti-fear medicine or the antidote for fear is courage. And if you don't have courage, then you have to look for opportunities to exhibit courage in the face of your fear. All right. I think I was talking about, the fear of dogs, and a lot of people have a fear of dogs. I have a German Shepherd. Her name is Misha, as you already know. Misha's a big dog. I'm a big man. I like big things. So, of course, I like big dogs. So, just to be honest, Misha scares the crap out of people just on sight. If you come to the door and Misha meets you at the door, you don't want to come in because she's, she stood on her hind legs. She'd be looking at you eye to eye or even looking down on you. And I get that some people have fear, but Misha's such a sweet dog that people who I've known that have been around her more often than those who are not, they are able to overcome their fear because the courage that they're using, I don't know whether I give them courage, but, whatever it is, they're able to push through that. And the fear kind of, dissipates a little bit. So we have to pray for courage. We have to ask our higher power. We have to reach inside deep of inside each one of us, and try to find the God in you. If you don't believe in a God, we'll talk about that later. But there's so much power inside of us, and if we pray and ask, for courage in difficult circumstances or situations, that courage will be there. Trust me, I know. I pray for it on the daily almost, for courage to be able to do the tough things. So you have to have courage in order to face your fear. And courage builds confidence. You might have a fear of heights, and then you go up a ladder. You know what? Matter of fact, let me go ahead and tell you a quick story. You don't always have a story. I remember I'm still afraid of heights. I'm tall, but I do not like to be up high because falling down is a terrible thought. So when I was very small and younger, going to swim at the local swimming pool, Double Oaks swimming pool, OCs, y'all original Charlotte, y'all remember Double Oaks, and then Revolution. They had these big, huge diving boards. I mean, they had the small ones, which were about 6 feet, but then they had the one that was like 15, 25, 100 feet in the air. It was 100 feet. I'm lying. But it was tall. It was tall, especially when you were a kid. It just seemed like it was so far. And everybody wanted to go and jump off the high diving board, except yours truly. I was not doing that. So I got tired of being scared. Okay, because I love to dive. I grew up watching the Olympics, and I remember Greg Louganis, whatever his name was. I remember him. He was just like the perfect swimmer and the high diver. Was he a high diver? Somebody might correct me on that. But I was just amazed at how these people could do these acrobatic tricks in the air and then land in the water and have zero splash. Psh. I mean, it was just like the greatest thing in the world. So whenever I went to the public swimming pool, I wanted to do the same thing. And so after I considered myself a master on the baby diving board, which was like 3 feet off the ground, the next thing up was, of course, the diving board that was 1,000 feet in the air. So one day, reluctantly, I don't know whether I was reluctant, but I was just tired of diving off the baby pool because you could dive in and run right around and jump in again. So I needed some more excitement. So I decided to get on the high diving board. And the line was long, and you could not get on the ladder until the person at the top was finished. So you would always be looking up to see when that person moved. And it was a long look up. And you were thinking, like, number one, you were waiting in the line. And then when you actually got to where you were the next person up after the person in front of you jumped, you were able to see exactly what you were getting ready to do. That meant you were getting ready to climb all the way up and jump down for no particular reason at all. I'm laughing because I remember this. So I get up there and I'm at the top and I look down, and y'all, when I tell you, I was afraid, but I was not going to come back down. Embarrassment, the fear of embarrassment overcame the fear of not jumping. So I went and I jumped and I tried to do a swan dive because I couldn't do flips. And I was doing a swan dive 1,000 feet in the air. And you all know what happened next. Yeah. I landed on my belly. Splash, splat, oh my gosh. And everybody in the pool at the same time. I even heard it underwater. Ooh. But I got over my fear of diving. So sometimes it takes something to push you past your fear. And I know I said a prayer at the time, Lord help me, because whenever I'm faced with something, I always call on God. So courage. We have to pray for courage in order to face our fears. And just like over the weekend, the No Kings protest, there were a lot of courageous people out there. There were a lot of people out there that were utilizing their superpowers as Americans. And if you don't know what your American superpowers are, it's your voice, your presence, okay? Your voice, your presence, okay? And your participation. Is that right? Your voice, your voice, your vote, and your presence. Presence is participation. So those are our three superpowers, and these are what these people are out there. And so I went to the rally, then I joined in the march, and I got to tell you, it was, until you join a cause, you will never understand what the feeling is to be a part of something that is bigger than you. And that's what faith is about. That's what our faith in things and belief in things bigger than us is about. If you put that, take it out of yourself, because we know we're screw ups. We know our shortcomings. Nobody knows how messed up we are better than ourselves. So if you are able to put your belief and faith in something that's bigger than you, man, what an incredible feeling. So the feeling that I got from being out there that Saturday morning, it was a beautiful day God had put out there. It was a beautiful day, gorgeous day. It wasn't too hot. It wasn't too cold. It was just perfect. And, they had their speakers. Then we did the march. And, so let's talk about the No Kings protest. A lot of people don't understand what the No Kings protest is about. So right after Donald Trump, our current president, took office, there was a image posted by the White House Twitter account, formerly known as Twitter X account, that showed him with a crown on and royal garb, an outfit, that kings wear. And the caption was, "All hail the king." So you can imagine your diehard Americans, your diehard patriots took offense to that. I don't even remember seeing it. I had to actually go back and Google it. But if you recall how this country was started, and I hope you do, this country was started on the premise that they weren't going to bow down to tyranny from the English king, King George, I believe that was his name. And so, they left England and they came here to America, to start their own colony country or whatever. So the whole king thing here in America, to those rabid historians, it has no place. So when after this image, of course, there was the fallout and whatnot, and then you start hearing the word fascist. And a lot of people are unfamiliar with the word fascism. So I wanted to bring it out, and let's go ahead and get learned it up. Okay, learned it up. Let's educate ourselves. And you can Google this, goggle it, however you want to. A fascist is someone who believes in or supports fascism, which is a political philosophy and system of government that emphasizes an authoritarian and nationalistic rule, often led by a dictator. See, even Misha doesn't like that. As soon as she hears the word, she's going ape shit. Oh, excuse me. So key characteristics of fascisms include the exaltation of a nation or race above individual, okay, a strong central government, and suppression of oppositions. Sounds familiar? Okay. This term also is used more broadly to describe any dictatorial or extremely right-wing views, often with an emphasis on control. So you see, even Misha doesn't like this. She is going crazy because she's like, I thought you weren't going to talk about that anymore. So when we talk about authoritarian, okay, we talk about authoritarian, it's a term for a political system with a strong central power and limited political freedoms, and emphasis on obedience to authority. It is characterized by a concentration of power in a single leader or small group, often disregarding democratic processes and suppressing dissent through various means like misinformation, fear, and violence. Authoritarianism can also describe a leadership style that demands unquestioning obedience, or a personality type that is disposed to unquestioning obedience. Now, does any of that sound like familiar? So this is what this whole King's protest is about. You know, nobody wants an authoritarian, running our country. Nobody's that smart. I don't care who you are. I'm not even that smart, and I think I'm a smart person sometimes. But, nobody wants an authoritarian. Nobody wants a dictator running our country. And so these people who are against fascism have now been labeled anti-fascist, or the short term is Antifa. Light bulb, ding, 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 ding. Okay. So if you've been wondering what is Antifa, Antifa is not a what. Okay. Antifa is most of us, because most of us are against fascism. Most of us don't want a dictator. Most of us want democracy, even though we might not be participating by not voting, okay, by not showing up to the polls. We still don't want fascism. So if you are one of those people, you're Antifa. And so that's what they have labeled everybody who is against fascism or who is against authoritarian. See how they try to make something that's just normal bad? You'll hear this, administration talking about, oh, that's the Antifa people. Antifa here, Antifa that. It doesn't have a leader, okay? Antifa is the people, okay? It is the people who are against being governed by a dictator. And, I hope that opens your head up, because, a lot of this stuff is at your fingertips. I keep telling people, you have the power. You have the most power than anybody before you in the history of time at your fingertips. Utilize that instead of Facebooking all the time, unless you're Facebooking my show, okay? Unless you're liking and listening and following me, plug. But, utilize that. I keep talking about taking 10 minutes out of the day for yourself, meaning get educated. Educate yourself. You don't have to be embarrassed by doing it in front of people. You can do it in the privacy of your home, of your car, your office, your bathroom. But learn something, man. You got to learn something, because when we're uneducated, we're able to be controlled by things we don't understand, because we fear them. Yep, there's that word again. See how everything kind of comes together? It comes together just like that. All right, so went to the King's protest. That was great. Had a marvelous time. There was no violence. As a matter of fact, from what I understand, there were millions protesting across this country, across the world, as a matter of fact. And I don't know if you guys started this. I don't know if you guys realize what started this, but what started this was a little over 5 years ago by a black man named George Floyd getting murdered. Now, if you're black, and I wasn't going to go here, because my brothers and sisters are everywhere. We're all family, we're all kinfolk. Okay. We just might not be of the same skin, but we're all kin. We're all related. Okay. We're all children of the high power. But I did not see a lot of black people at the No Kings protest. I did not see a lot of people that I knew from Charlotte at the No Kings protest. And it kind of made me feel a certain kind of way, because I'm tired of being called a unicorn. Where the hell are my Charlotte people? My OCs, my original Charlotteans, listen, you got to get out here. You have got to get out here and let people know who you are. People are taking over this city because you are standing back and doing nothing. Now, if you're afraid, pray for courage. But the time to be on the sidelines and doing nothing, that time is over with. This man, George Floyd, gave his life. And I think if you went back and asked him, say, hey, would you be willing to die and start all these wars, he probably would say, nah, not that. But I'm just telling you this, I don't care. I don't care about dying if it means that it's going to empower millions of people to create and exact some change. I don't mind it one bit. I've already been close to death, so I know that with this second lifetime, I really want to do something that matters. And if you're still on your first lifetime, and a lot of us aren't, because we face death in other ways that we don't even think about anymore, but you have to do something with this life while you're here. If your parents did not teach you the importance of being active in civic duty, then they did you a disservice. I'm just going to tell you, they did you a disservice. And maybe because they were afraid for your safety. Who knows? If they're alive, go ask them. I remember asking my mother, did she remember where she was when Martin Luther King got killed? She couldn't, She's probably somewhere partying. My mother loved to party. And as I'm sure a lot of your parents were party people. The 60s were hell. The 60s were about drugs and sex and all that other stuff. Hint, 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 hint. But now, right now, at this time, all those people that have died before George Floyd and the people that are still dying today, we can make this world a better place because we can. But if we're unwilling to do anything because we're afraid or because we don't care, okay, some people just don't care. And a lot of that don't care comes from they feel like they can't do anything. A lot of women are, disheartened because they put so much effort into Kamala, her campaign, and the outcome wasn't what they wanted. And I get that, but that doesn't mean that you go sit down in the bleachers and just watch this shit show. I'm sorry, watch what's happening. We need you. We need you in this game, ladies. We have one of the signs. I'm going to tell you something about this the No Kings protest. There were so many creative signs. I'm serious. But the one that stands out the most, it said, and I quote, "Elect a rapist, expect to get fucked." Excuse my language, but there's no way I could have cleaned that up. But when I saw that one, I saw a couple of more. There were a lot of signs. And when I tell you, when we all get together and we pull our heads and our ideas, we can come up with some amazing things. And these were people that weren't even talking to one another and making their own signs, making their own costumes because they were unified on one side for one thing, because they were against this whole idea of one man being in charge of everything. So, ladies, those of you who have been disheartened, feel like you've been disenfranchised. Hey, I felt like that when George Bush's brother in Florida stole the election from who was that running for president? Al Gore. You remember that? Those of you who are alive, do you remember that? I mean, we cannot become disheartened and thus go sit down on our hands and do nothing, because the other side is working hard to make us feel that way. The other side wants you to feel disheartened. They want you to throw your hands up and say, what's the use? They want you to feel like you cannot do anything. But the truth of the matter is you can. That's why they're going to Congress. That's why these states are trying their best to go in and redraw congressional lines. For those people who say your vote doesn't count, why do you think they're working so hard to take it away and keep it? I mean, two things can't exist in the same vacuum. Two things cannot exist. You cannot say that your vote doesn't count, but at the same time, these people are working feverishly to take your vote away. So you got to get learned it up. You got to get learned it up. And I know I'm speaking broken grammar, and that's not even a word. Actually, it is. But you have to educate yourselves. So really, a lot happening this weekend. We're going to take a quick break. We've been going a little bit longer than I thought we should have been going. So we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back. You're listening to the Fordcast with J.G. Lockhart.
You need to get it, feet don't
All right, we're back here at the Fordcast with your host, J.G. Lockhart. And hey, Keisha, what's happening? So, of course, I do not own the rights to this music. So we're going to go ahead and pull that out. But we're back here at the forecast. And right before we jump into our next topic, I want to talk about my Panthers because you know I am the number one fan. And did I not call it? Did I not call it? I said it was going to be a defensive game. I said Steve Wilkes was going to have something for us, and he did. I love you, Steve. I'm still waiting on you to come to the show, too. But Steve had his defense out, and I almost predicted the exact score, too. I think I told someone it was going to be 10-3, and I think the score turned out to be 13-6. So, you know, hats off to you, JG. All right. But my Panthers on a 3-game winning streak, and little Bryce, poor little fella, has hurt his ankle, and him is probably not going to play Sunday. But I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think we need Bryce to win. I think we can shut Buffalo down with our defense, and I think we can run on them. And I'm jump out here again, I'm predicting another defensive effort. We probably won't hold them to 6 points, but I'm thinking they might score maybe 10, 13 points. So I'm going to go out here and step on a limb and predict a Panthers victory, 14-13. No, 14-10. Panthers victory. At home Sunday. Keep the home win streak alive. Panthers move to 5-3. Yes, and we party on Monday morning. All right, so enough of that. Did you see? Oh, wait a minute. Before we move on, did you see how they're kissing Ejiro's butt now? The defensive coordinator, whom all these Dean Jones of the Charlotte Observer, how they have been disparaging him for the last year, and now they want to ride his testicles. Excuse me, you know. But anyway, number 7 defense in NFL thus far, you know. So hats off to Ejiro. Keep it going, brother. Like what you're doing. Keep those folks off your back. All right, now, here we go. Relationships. Let's talk a little bit about that. So I'm going to just throw it out there because, you know, I am 50-something, and I'm not married, never have been married. I've been in a lot of relationships. Well, not a lot. I've been in a few relationships. I've been in more casual relationships than anything else. And one of the things that it really kind of pokes his head out is when I do get into a relationship is that what are the expectations going in? And one of the biggest things about a lot of relationships are the expectations versus the realities of you and the person you're in the relationship with. Anybody? So what that actually looks like is when you meet somebody, wherever you guys meet, and you're feeling each other and you're talking, and, you know, she says or he says that, you know, they're, you know, single, and you say you're single if you're single. So it's like, hey, we're single, so what are you doing? Now, me, I like to ask questions. I like to know what the intentions are for this relationship. You know, I'm nosy. I want to know, what do you want me for? You know, do you want me for just sex? Do you want to marry me? I want to know, you know, but everybody's not the same. And a lot of people just kind of go with the flow, you know, what makes them feel good, you know, and they don't talk about these things. And so then you get into a relationship that's 2, 3, 4 months in, and God forbid if you start bringing good sex in, because, you know, good sex will cloud a mind, you know. So you got to look at it from if you're going into it with your eyes open or if you're going into it with your eyes closed. And a lot of us go into it both ways, you know, one eye open, one eye closed, or both eyes open. But the thing about it is, wherever you are, if that other person isn't in the same place where you are, then you're going to have a disconnect. All right. So whatever your relationship is, because once you start developing a bond with somebody, that is the relationship. Okay. When you decide to become friends or start talking on the phone for more than one time, when you start making an effort to spend time together, you guys are involved in some type of relationship, whether it's friendly, amicable, sexual, God forbid violent, but you guys are involved in a relationship. And too often we don't discuss, what we want. We kind of might guess, we might talk about it. Well, why you not married? What happened with your marriage? Or if you were, why you haven't ever been married? Or what, all those things. Do you want to be married? Hopefully these questions come up and hopefully you get some honest answers. And I guess at the age that I am now, because I'm thinking back to in my 20s and 30s, the expectation was that I was going to, get married at some point. I was always looking for a wife. Every woman I was dating, I was looking at as marriage material. Every last one. Well, not every last one of them. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I told you I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect. But for the most part, I was definitely looking for a wife. Now, after being engaged multiple times, I've been engaged more times than the average person. I promise you that. I have bought more engagement rings than the average person does in a lifetime. Okay. Actually, no, because I do believe there are people that have been married like 5, 6, 7 times, and that those wedding bands and rings can add up. But so expectations when you're going into the relationship, the communication has its place. All right. So you can talk about something all day long, but the actions kind of will also communicate. Like say, for example, you can enter a relationship and both of you can say, we're not going to have sex, we're going to get to know each other and blah, blah, blah. And then the next thing you know, one night you guys wind up doing it. Old term, I just told my age, doing it. And you wind up doing it. So you communicated, but your actions said something else. Now, if you actually do it, one person might look at that and say, oh, we're doing it, so we're taking our relationship to another level. The other person might look at it as, oh, we're doing it. What the hell are we doing? And why are we doing this? Or somebody might look at it and say, oh, we're doing it. Yay. But do you see? And I'm just throwing stuff out there. But, once you do bring that act into it, the act of sex, the act of making love, it changes things. And God forbid that the sex is good, because good sex will screw the mind. I mean, because at the end of the day, we are all human and we have carnal instincts, like the most basic things that make us happy. And for a lot of people, it's sex. A lot of people, it's helping people, whatever it is that makes you happy. But when we want to please ourselves mostly first, and we try to do the carnal things that please us, especially when we have somebody that's on the same page. So when you start talking about bringing sex into the picture, then that kind of starts clouding whatever else you discuss. And then you have to go back and have another conversation, which most of us don't. Most of us will go ahead and continue to have sex. Now, when we talked about not doing it, now, we done it, so now we're going to keep doing it. Whereas we talked about this one thing, now we're doing it. And the problem with that is one person might be enjoying it, okay? Or both of you might be enjoying it, but one person is thinking one thing and the other person is thinking something entirely different. And if you aren't communicating that, then that is going to cause some complications, because at some point, what's being suppressed is going to come out. Like it is, because the truth is what really it's about. One person, let's just break this down to men and women. So, and we're going to throw some myths out there. So one of the biggest things about men and women is if a man takes a woman to meet his family, to a woman, that is one of the biggest ways of a man letting her know that he accepts her or that he is looking at her in a certain light that he is confident enough to bring her around his family. That is huge for some women, okay? Because traditionally, you know, the only women that men brought home were the women that they were going to marry. You know, we didn't have all this, you know, sexting that we doing today where, you know, your mama might meet 12, 15 women and you might not never get married. But, you know, back in the day, you know, you wouldn't bring anybody home. I know I definitely didn't bring anybody home, you know, but, well, I did. Let me stop lying. But I didn't bring a lot home. Well, maybe I did. Okay, I got to stop talking about me because I'm really forgetting my past. But that particular scenario, if the man is bringing her home and his thought pattern does not align with hers, then he's sending a message to her that is unintended. And she receives a message that was not intended for her. So you see how that little example can throw things off. And then you're having sex. You took her home, you're having sex, you go back, you have sex again, you had a great time. And the man is just like, you know, oh, you know, you're cool to hang out. I can take you around my people. Oh, yeah, I'm having a good time. You know, now this man might have another chick, you know, or two or three, or this woman might have another dude or two or three. But at some point, somebody's going to start thinking that, you know, wow, this is cool. You know, I like his family. I like her family. They like me. So, you know, maybe we're ready to move on to the next step. Now, if you have not discussed this, or if you are not discussing this in your relationship, communication, then those mixed signals get people crossed up, and then you start having your feelings. So I don't know. You know, if you got an opinion on this, shoot me an email and, you know, let me know. Jim Rico at the Fordcast with Jim Rico. Soon to be JG Lockhart at the Fordcast with JG Lockhart, but we're changing that. But if you got a comment on that and you want me to share it with you, shoot me an email. That's Jim Rico at the Fordcast with JimRico.com. And that's going to be changing soon. So, you know, we really have to understand our relationships and what we're walking into when we walk into them. And you have to keep the line of communication open on a constant basis, which is something that's difficult to do because a lot of times it brings up fears and anxiety because we're afraid to say what's real on our mind because it might not be reciprocated. You know, nobody wants to be rejected, but I would rather be rejected than have someone thinking that something that I'm doing is not what I'm, you know, trying to do. I would just rather be rejected. Now, trust me, I hate no. I hate being rejected. I was that guy growing up going to high school dances that if one girl turned me down, I didn't have the courage to ask anybody else because the rejection was just too much. So rejection is something, and it puts that fear factor in us. So we have to have those lines of communication open, and we're going to talk about this again. And I'm going to bring some ladies on the show that we can talk about this, you know, and just kind of hear them directly out. But if you got a comment and you want to shoot it to me, I'll definitely read your comment on the air and let those who hear it. So sometimes being communicative is enough because some people want what they want. And if it's you they want, then it's you who they will put in the crosshairs. So what that means basically is you can communicate all you want to some people. And this is why you have to know people before you start doing things that, you know, start getting your feelings involved. Because if you start getting involved with an individual and they decide to put you in their crosshairs and just hone in on you, and they're gonna have you regardless, then they're gonna do everything they want to have you. And sometimes, you know, people have been through stuff, and you know, sometimes people would go about doing that the wrong way. And that's when you start having, you know, manipulation, you start having violence, you start having verbal abuse, mental abuse. There are lots of things that can come in. So you gotta try and be communicative throughout, at the beginning especially, and then throughout. You got to be able to talk, and you have to be able to be honest. you have to have the courage to just tell the truth about where you are and what you want. Because if you aren't able to do that, then other people are left to come up with their own thinking. And the last thing you want someone to do is to think that you're all into them and you're not, or vice versa, I mean, so you really got to think about that when you're doing it. Okay? Makes sense? Yeah, I thought it did. I did. Let's see. So, do we want to talk a little bit more about that? No, we don't. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to jump into our 10-minute transportation talk before we close it out. This is the Forecast with your host, J.G. Lockhart, on a beautiful hump day. It is absolutely gorgeous. So we'll be right back after this. All right, we're back here at the Forecast with your host, J.G. Lockhart. And just to let you know, I do not own the rights to any of this music. White Snake, go ahead on. I do not own the rights to White Snake. Can you say that 5 times real quick? I do not own the rights to White Snake. Okay. So anyway, we're back here at the Forecast, and we'll go ahead and pull this out right quick. So, last thing before we go, we'll do our 10-minute transportation talk. And before I jump into that, let me just say I went and spoke at the Charlotte Rotary Club yesterday. They had a forum set up for the for side and the against side. And if you guys know, we are under this sales tax referendum where 1 cent is, we're voting to increase our taxes or not. And they're telling us that if we vote to increase our taxes, the sales tax, that this money is going to pay for everything. It's going to pay for your kids going to college. No, I'm lying. Let me stop with the misinformation. So they're promising that the sales tax was going to do a lot of things, and myself and 3 other individuals were on one side, and there were 4 people on the other side. One of them was Larry Sheheen, and this guy is a hired gun for the for side. And the for side is basically, you hear them, it's a coalition. It's the Yes for MEC coalition. And these people are sponsored by the Charlotte Business Alliance. Did you hear that? They're sponsored by the Charlotte Business Alliance. And they have dropped $3 million, into this Yes for MEC campaign. Think about it, $3 million that they're putting towards a campaign. Now, just think for a second. If these people are putting $3 million in, they're investing in something. Who do you think they're investing in with $3 million, and who do you think they're going to get their return on? Do you think that they're investing in the west side or the east side or the southeast side? Do you think they're expecting a return from the west side, the east side, or the south side? I mean, you got to start thinking. You have to think. I mean, and I know some people don't want to think, but I mean, man, if we don't start thinking, then we're lost. We're dead if we don't start thinking, because if we start allowing other people to think for us, then we might as well be in a authoritarian state where you can't even think independently. All right. And thanks to the North Carolina General Assembly taking money out of our education, out of our schools, we have a lot of kids that are coming out now. They can't think. They can't count. They can't think. Something which should be basic. You should be able to think your way out of a wet paper bag, but some people can't. So we were on this on this forum, and they were asking questions. And one of the questions that comes up from a lot of people is, well, if we don't do this, what do we do? Okay, well, here's the answer. So if we're being asked to pay a penny more for our sales tax in the Charlotte region in order to pay for transportation, how about Charlotteans? I'm talking about Charlotte only, not the rest of Mecklenburg County, because, Charlotte makes up 85% of Mecklenburg County and thus makes up 85% of the tax base of Mecklenburg County. Now, if you don't understand this, then you need to know that Charlotte, the city of Charlotte, pays taxes to Mecklenburg County, which in turn acts like a bookie and pays them to the state. Okay? So we pay the county pays the state. We pay the county 85% of the money that it gets because we're 85% of the county in land, in area, population, people, money, everything. Okay? So if we took that money and instead of investing it in something that's going to benefit Huntersville, Cornelius, Davidson, Iredell County, Mount Moriah, yes, these places not named Charlotte, instead of Charlotteans paying $19 billion into that, how about we take that penny, if you don't mind paying a penny, how about we take that penny and we invest it in our own city, in our own roads, in our own buses, because we own our transit system, okay? Now, we've been investing all these years. Why don't we just keep investing in ourselves? Why would we want to Charlotte? I'm talking about Charlotteans, and this is where OCs come in. OCs, original Charlotteans. This is where you come in. This is why you can't sit on the sidelines for this. Because those people in the northern counties, which all these people make up less than 200,000 people. In the city of Charlotte alone, we have 945,000 people, almost 1 million. Why would you want your tax increase go to the less than 100,000 people that this commuter rail they're talking about is serving? Now, all this other stuff, better busing, yeah, they're talking about better busing, but not for the places that need it. They're only putting 20% of this money towards better busing. So how much of that money do you think you're going to get? And it's not going to be right now. This is a 30-year plan. A lot of people are thinking that we're going to get this, like Christmas is coming. Absolutely not. You have to generate the money in order to spend the money. Now, I'm not going to go back in time because I talked about on the last show about how we did this back in 1998 with the same promises that we were going to have this and that didn't happen. But these people, the Yes for MEC, this Charlotte Business Alliance, they have these questionnaires out, and I saw it the other day and I printed it out because I wanted to talk a little bit about the show, and they have frequently asked questions. 1, and this is what they're putting out: will riders and transit workers have a voice in the new transit authority? And their answer: riders, workers, and everyday residents will help shape the future of our transit system. Transit system riders will be able to serve on the authority, a point of emphasis for local leaders. The plan includes clear commitments to involve people who use the system the most. There will be formal ways for riders and workers to be heard and represented. Now, this is true, but in actuality, there's only one seat out of the 27 seats available where a rider is guaranteed. Okay? Out of 27 seats on this new authority. So when they ask the question, will riders and transit workers have a voice? Yes. You're going to have one voice, which is what Charlotte has had for the last 25 years in creating this plan. One voice. So they're telling the truth there, but it's one of those misconceptions that, we're going to have this representation. Question 2, how does the plan impact everyday riders? Answer, the investment directly benefits people who rely on transit every day. That is a lie. It means faster buses, safer stops, more shelters, and new ways to get around, like on-demand microtransit. These upgrades help people get to jobs, healthcare, and school more easily. We are making sure that affordability stays front and center. Now, this is the one that really trips me out. So there's so many people thinking that microtransit is going to come and pick you up off of Beatties Ford Road and take you where you get to go. Microtransit is going into places that do not have a dense population. That means do not have a lot of people. That's where the microtransit is going. It's not coming to people like who have to walk a mile to the bus stop off of Beatty's Ford Road, because the buses aren't coming into neighborhoods anymore. No, it's not going there. Matter of fact, if you don't believe me, try and call microtransit right now if you're living off the Ford and see where that gets you. So if you're thinking that microtransit is going to be a solution, not for you, okay? So I read those two questions because I want you to understand that they're telling you truths, but the truths that they're telling will not benefit or will not have any effect on the people that utilize them to most. 80% of transit riders are black and brown people. All right. This plan does not take those 80% of the riders into context. I promise you it doesn't. Now, you can go to my website that I had started, when I started running for city council at large. You can go to my website, www.jglforclt.com, and you can see it for yourself on the issues page. I know you don't like to read. I get it. Some people don't like to read. But, folks, we got to reimagine what it's like, living every day. We just can't keep going blind and letting people tell us what to do. I don't want to tell you what to do, and I've said that before. But if I have to, I'm going to tell you the right thing. All right. So question number 3, who made the transportation plan? Answer. This plan came from years of community input. Residents, local leaders, and transit users helped shape it. Elected leaders from the county, city, and towns representing residents worked to draft the plan and adopted resolutions in support of the plan. It is designed to improve how people move across the county. Now, that last statement was true. It is designed to improve how people move across the county. You're absolutely right, because in this plan, 50% of the red line, a commuter train, not a light rail, must be completed into northern Mecklenburg. That means people in Huntersville, Cornelius, and Davidson, and Mooresville, okay? These people are going to be able to move in and out of the county or in and out of Charlotte back to their homes, okay? But on the Ford, no, you're not getting that. Steel Creek area, no, you're not getting that, okay? So when they tell you local leaders helped come up with this plan was come up with by the MTC, the Metropolitan Transit Commission. And the Metropolitan Transit Commission, you already know, listen to the last show, we have had, and I say we, I mean Charlotteans, have had one vote out of the 9 people that vote for plans. And this commission is the one that presented this to the county commissioners for them to put on the referendum. Okay? So anyway, listen, I want you to understand that people are trying to take advantage of you not understanding or not knowing the facts. And when you read through these things, you have to know what you're reading and break it down. All right? I'm not going to go through all of them because I could, because all of it is pure bullshit. Excuse my language. And it's really ridiculous that we're here at this point, because these people are trying to push a plan on you during an off-election year. Okay, we have over 1 million, I think it's 1 million registered voters in Mecklenburg County as a whole. And all of that Mecklenburg County, Charlotte voters represent about 800,000 of these votes. So they are relying on Charlotte voters not showing up or voting for this thing because Charlotte voters are thinking this is for them. Been there, done that, 1998 before. So get yourself educated, get yourself learned it up, okay? And make sure you go in there and you're informed, all right? Because we don't need this. We don't need this, all right? This is not something for you. I grew up riding the bus. And if I thought that this was something that was for bus riders, I would be like, hell yeah. But no. All right. So I think that was 10 minutes. And if it wasn't quite 10 minutes, I think I went over the last time. So this is J.G. Lockhart with the Forecast. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. Hope the rest of your week is great. Maybe I'll see you tomorrow. maybe not. Or maybe I'll talk to you tomorrow, maybe not. But until I do, I want to leave you with some words of encouragement, okay? These little things kind of help me at times. This one is about courage, since we were talking about. And courage is the attitude of facing and dealing with anything recognized as dangerous, difficult, or painful instead of withdrawing from it. A quality of being fearless or brave, valor. Mind, purpose, or spirit. I had a friend once tell me that he wasn't brave. And I told him, I said, yes, you are. You just haven't found it. And that courage is inside you. I hope you find it. Remember, we got one day, that's today, to do whatever it is we want to do. And if today's the day that you want to practice courage, then find a way to practice courage. Do something that you haven't done. This is J.G. Lockhart, signing off until the next time. Love you all. Take care.